Also, I thought it would be useful to also introduce to you the touchscreen capabilities, so that it's a bit of a sort of informative session in a number of dimensions, not just about the program, but also about touchscreen technologies and how they can be used. So if you were to just wipe up on the icon at the bottom, it actually brings you up all the maps. You can actually pin maps. For example, that's the home map, a guide to strategic management at the top, so you can pin maps, or it just shows you the ones you've viewed previously. So to start with, we'll go into My Maps. And then, just like a standard tablet, PC or phone program, you can just move into to actually bring everything onto the screen. We then have two options in My Manager. I quite like it in design mode, so you can move it around, and so you can actually press the button and then you can move the screen, the content around the screen. The other option is, if you're familiar with PowerPoint and you prefer a PowerPoint style of presentation, then you can go into View, Walkthrough, and actually that brings up the presentation mode as you would find in PowerPoint, very similar. And then you just click on Next, and it goes to the I started to gain an interest in establishing how we could develop new approaches to delivering strategic management. Because one thing I found was that the strategic management concepts are fairly simple in themselves, but students have problems producing a good answer because they didn't see all aspects of the issue and they didn't relate issues. And so one issue that I felt was important that was missing was students picking up the relationships between things, which is an important in strategy, and develop more holistic solutions to problems. So I sort of see it a bit like the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is a more inspiring piece of engineering, and strategy can be quite awe-inspiring and quite daunting for students. But actually, at its core, it's just a series of metal bars and rivets. And it's what I decided to try to do was to create something like an engineer's blueprint that enabled people to see how the bars and rivets fitted together to actually create a subject. Increasingly, I think, there's an opportunity for complementary developments that are coming into place to actually create synergies with this approach. Because, for example, we don't in here have an electronic whiteboard, but if we did, then all I'm doing on this screen could be done by the presenter on an electronic whiteboard. And by moving the material around and engaging in it, actually students might find that a more interesting way to gain content. And also it's free to distribute because it's an electronic form. The marginal cost is pretty much zero, so it's a public good in many senses. So actually students, hi there, students could actually have this content on their own tablet computers or laptops that they take into lectures and seminars, and they could actually add their own ideas to the content that's provided, so it enables them to personalise it. So the opportunities for both the sort of incorporation of electronic whiteboards into teaching, together with the sort of students increasingly having tablets and laptops, I think really does provide opportunities for this material to add real value to the whole teaching process. And in fact, I had an email from a student a couple of weeks ago who I taught innovation to at Nottingham Trent in 2009-2010. And he was saying that he'd been in a lecture recently and he'd seen lots of people with iPads taking notes, and he thought that this was an ideal solution given the sort of way the student body now engages with the learning experience. Perhaps it's worth talking a little bit about the way the brain works. So basically the brain has two hemispheres. We've got the left side and the right side. And the left side is very much associated with rational and logic. And that really is the side of the brain that is dominant in current education processes. It's very much sort of logical, rational, sequential, deconstructing the context into bits and in a sequence. But then we have the right side of the brain, which actually looks at things in a different way. It sees things more holistically. Looks for the big picture, looks for completion. It's also quite creative, and that's where colour is analysed, and visualising and imagining. And that side of the brain is not really so engaged with current education practices. And so whilst the traditional education practices focus on left brain thinking, actually I think to actually develop students' abilities to understand material more effectively, we need to have them engage both sides of the brain to more effectively learn material. So, as I say, if we can get students to use both sides of the brain together, we should improve our chances of retaining and more effectively constructing knowledge. Problems with traditional learning techniques is it's quite linear, and actually real life is multidimensional. And when people see things in a sort of a sequence, then they can see one thing lead to another that actually affects another in a sort of very linear way. But actually we're wanting to get away from that and get them to see how things can interrelate in many different ways and interact. And by gaining that appreciation, you can start to develop the more comprehensive solutions. Linearity also stifles creativity. Also in texts, it often seems like a sea of words, and that can demotivate people, because sometimes they like to see the key points. We need to present them with the co-pegs to hang their knowledge on, and that, for that they need the sort of key points presenting very clearly. And also, because it's all disconnected and you can't see the big picture, it is often quite difficult for students to remember even a journal article after they've read it, because they've not been able to see the key points, so they can't see how it all fits together. They lose track of what they've read. Whereas this enables people to gain perspective, as well as then go down to the detail. And because it's not concise, it takes students time to gather the material, and that process can put people off. And all the text is often in black. There is no video or picture content, so it tends to produce monotony. Monotone text produces monotony and boredom. And so possibly in order to engage students more effectively, we need to engage through development of colour more, because to learn they need to have both energy and motivation, and if we can stimulate that more effectively, then we can develop a more effective learning environment. Okay, so the things where I think maps can be important is that they enable information to be expressed more concisely. simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. If we can be very clear and simple about the terms, then people can take them in more effectively. So we need to look at how content can be made more concise, simple and clear. And so the shorter we can make the explanations, the better. Okay, and that improves the efficiency of knowledge acquisition. Also, it enables people to preview material more efficiently and review material more efficiently. And one of the things is that Tony Buzan says that people should review the material after a week and then it'll stay with them for a month, then review it after a month and it'll stay with them for 6 months, and then review it again in 6 months. Very few people review the material because there is so much, and so being able to present material in a way that is very concise reduces the barriers to people doing our learning process that enables them to acquire knowledge more effectively. The second thing that's important with mind mapping, the reason I really developed the approach, was the importance of showing the relationships between things. And one thing that mind maps can do is they can provide a visual presentation of relationships to help students internalise the linkages and relationships more effectively. The brain builds knowledge by association, and by presenting patterns, then we help people be able to recall content. And associations, as I've said before, are rarely linear, and so this provides an opportunity to present the range of linkages in a way where people can see all the different relationships in a particular context. And then, so that's radiant thinking that we're using here. And that promotes more holistic thinking about issues, getting the whole picture, and the right side of the brain likes to see the whole perspective and it remembers it. So if we can engage that side, all the better. In a sense, what we're doing with mind maps is we're working in a way that mimics the activity of the brain. The brain is a series of neurons and connections, and by making the connections, patterns are formed. So if we present in an outwards way how the brain works, then actually people may be more able to understand the material and internalise it more effectively. Okay. The other key benefit is that it provides a very clear structure for acquiring knowledge, and that improves people's ability to understand the material because it provides a structure where they can put it all together. And also, once they understand it, the relationships and the fact that they see things as multidimensional enables the creativity to come in and think about new ways of combining the ideas and themes. Once they've got clarity as to how all the bits fit together, and it's more easily remembered when you've got sort of clear structures for knowledge. And of course, people can then, very easily with mind maps, move content around. They can see how actually we could structure the information differently. There's a different way of perceiving this issue. And mind maps make it very simple to actually move material around for people to change perspectives on a particular thing. We can actually create a more stimulating environment potentially by this approach. The thing is, whatever stands out gets noticed and is more easily remembered. So if we can develop associations and also create stimulation and variety, then that keeps people engaged with the material and it potentially enables them to learn more effectively. So we can use pictures, rich pictures create 1,000 words and help people understand the concepts. So they can be incorporated into topic boxes. Other things you can do is you can add notes, detailed notes. So, for example, by just moving the mouse over a note, it will pick up any notes that you've added to a topic where you want to put in more detail. So we incorporate pictures, linking words with images improves recall. As well as incorporating pictures, we can put in diagrams that relate to particular models that reinforce a point. And then if people want to see a model in more detail, they just click it and then they just open it out so it can be seen in greater detail what it means. And then when the person's finished viewing the material, they just move back in so it can sort of engage with the rest of the material. It's not only a case of being able to incorporate diagrams. One point when you're incorporating diagrams into a topic box, to get the material to blend into the background, it's worth clicking on a slide, selecting all objects in a slide, and then copying and then pasting inside the box. And then that will make the topic box background the background for the images. So you don't have problems with background of the presentation slides not blending into the background of the topic box. The other thing you can incorporate into here is spreadsheet data. So for a question on developing supply curve and cost structures, you can actually add some data into a topic box, which includes all the range of data involved that will be generated. So you ask students to produce the data, and then you can present what the answers are and discuss it. And the spreadsheet actually does basic calculations, so you can do a lot of the calculations within the spreadsheet inside the topic box, just like you can in Microsoft Excel. As well as being able to put in spreadsheet data, once you put in the spreadsheet data, you can turn that data into simple bar charts and column charts. So there we've actually turned some of that data into looking at the average and marginal product of labour and just incorporate that in. It doesn't have labels for legends, so you'd have to put that in the title, but you can work around that issue. Okay, the next thing of course is again to reduce the monotony and to add emphasis. You can also do things, improve information recall by adding codes. And so, for example, you could actually change data so that anything to do with the positioning approach was in a blue circle, anything to do with resource base was in a green, and anything to do with stakeholder management was in an oval. And that way, association actually helps people see where it all fits into different perspectives on strategic management. And of course, you can use colour text, change text size, and all sorts to reinforce emphasis. Also, you can, within mind maps, very easily access other content. So, for example, here I've got a video of Porter's 5 Forces. And so you just, if I was connected to the internet, just click on the Internet Explorer hyperlink, which is at the side of the topic box. So just there. And by clicking on that, I would be taken to Porter's presentation on 5 Forces that's been produced by the Harvard Business Review. And also, you've got hyperlinks to more detailed maps. You can link it to electronic journal articles, as well as sort of standard Word, PowerPoint, Excel files. There is an add-in in MindManager 9, which is currently what the university is distributing, an add-in that enables you to access files across the SharePoint site, across the intranet. So also 2012, which is the next version of MindManager, has that actually built in. then it's far more, it's seamless actually acquiring content from around the intranet by using a SharePoint service. And also you've got the opportunity to embed mind maps into web pages. So you could in fact put a mind map on your subject into a web page, and then students can navigate the map to gain access to the various resources and more detailed content. So that can all be embedded in web pages. And so the idea of all these cues, changing size and colour and shape of the images to embed hyperlinks to journal articles, to videos, to web content, to websites. That's all a case of trying to stimulate students, reduce monotony, and so improve that learning experience, get them to engage more thoroughly because they're enjoying the learning experience better, and so achieve better grades in the process. And then all that should promote greater creativity. And the approach can be used for brainstorming by getting people to just throw their ideas out, and you can then sort of just place them on the map and then move them into positions and hierarchies in order to get to structure the discussion that's taking place. And I think it's not just a tool for learning, but it's also a tool for managers, because at the end of the day, if we can get people to be more creative, then we can actually enhance the manager's skills in the real world. Because, as Mintzberg said, if it's written in a book, your competitors are probably already doing it. And product differentiation requires people to do things differently. And this is a tool that can help people change their perspective and do things in a different way. I talked previously about the approach by making information concise. It enables people to preview content more effectively because it's taking less time, so they're more likely to do it. So this content can be placed on Blackboard so that people can look at the material prior to seminars and lectures in order to get an understanding of what's going on, so they can engage with the seminars more effectively and understand the lectures more thoroughly. Also, you can use it to engage with textbooks. So in here there's a mind map on Blue Ocean strategy. So they can read that mind map on Blue Ocean strategy, they can view it, and then they've got a series of code pegs on which to hang the information they're acquiring from the textbook. Similarly with journal articles, there's mind maps on Porter's forces that shape strategy. That's in there. Again, that helps them more effectively pick out the material and structure it from the journal article. And then, of course, they can then extend the maps and restructure their information to reflect their own perceptions. And part of it is done for them. So we can use it to help them structure information in journal articles, in textbooks, in material for seminars and lectures. And similarly, the whole process of reviewing information after the seminar and lecture is made easier, and so therefore students should be more willing to engage in that process due to the conciseness. And there I present the sort of the issues with regard to what Bazan says about when you should be reviewing material. At the moment, students will not be using that approach. With this more concise information, they may start to use it. And also, the advantage with this approach is that the material is not constrained like it is within a textbook. Johnson, Scholes and Whittington, quite a comprehensive textbook. The problem for them is they are constrained by the publisher's page limit. They can only put so much material into the textbook. So the electronic content I've created on teaching management now probably covers a greater range of information than exploring strategy, just because they are constrained. And similarly, as people can collaborate together and work together to build bodies of knowledge which are not constrained by page limits, and so you can get far richer information than is contained in textbooks. And also, because textbooks often reflect a perspective, a point of view, like the linear rational approach is key theme throughout Johnson, Scholes and Whittington. Students tend to get quite a limited perspective, whereas by having an opportunity to present a more comprehensive picture, they can actually see different perspectives more effectively, because you can bring them all together in a single place. So they can actually give people a more thorough understanding of the terrain because of this not being constrained by the content that is allowed within a textbook. And so you don't get the Chinese walls that often happen when publishers have different books that give different perspectives on an issue. So the student benefits. I think the key benefits for students are we have more comprehensive content. Digitization, we no longer have restrictions as to the amount that can be incorporated into the material. Due to concise expression and clearer identification of relationships and dependencies, people should be able to learn more effectively. And because we're moving away from that linear format, the non-linear approach enables people to sort of see the multidimensional nature of issues and how one thing can impact on multiple other things. And so how they need to structure strategies in order to overcome the problems that arise from those sort of relationships and the potential for unintended consequences. That visual linkage helps improve recall, and also the nature of the approach means that you can learn anytime, any place, anywhere. This is available on the internet, and you can access it and look at it at your own pace and your own time, and it's in a form where you can take bits at a time. It can be read in bite-sized chunks, so it's available to use as and when you need it. It's economical because it costs next to nothing to replicate, and enables students to preview and review content more efficiently. And so the things with benefits potentially to lecturers is, firstly, their students do better because the students are more engaged, they are reviewing the material more, they tend to achieve better grades, they see the relationships between elements which were less obvious in linear presentation formats. So the students, I feel, have done better when I've delivered the content this way. Also, it provides lecturers with a bridge between lecture notes and textbooks and other course content. Because, for example, I was talking to a colleague the other day, and on one programme they were covering business environment, the business environment on a course, and in the lecture slides they did Porter's 5 forces. And I said, well, you know, there's other elements, there's generic strategies, and I said, well, the assessment is Porter's 5 forces, so I felt as though in the lecture I had to focus on that because that was where the assessment was. But I realised that as a result of doing that, I'm missing out on other content that is relevant, but we haven't got time in the lecture programme. One way around that is to provide this sort of content so that the lecturer can provide the content in the lecture that he feels it's appropriate to go through in the time available, and then he can say, and also, so for example, the lecturer could go down here and say, well, actually this is what we've covered today with regard to the business environment, We've covered Porter's five forces and all the elements related to that. However, you should be aware that there is also this additional content within the business environment that is also worth considering, but we don't have time in the lecture today. And also it enables the lecturer to then provide far more detail to the students in a form that is very concise and enables them to gain structure on the wider issues, which can then help them engage with the other material more effectively. And also you can use it as a course leader potentially. First module developers can use it to create a clear course structure. I use the business environment content in the mind maps to actually develop the business environment course for this academic year, and to create a structure that looks clear in the broad scale, and then you can actually sort of present the detail. Also, because the content can be stored remotely, lecturers can collaborate and work together on content in a central location. And then course leaders can actually take those module overviews, and they can look for unnecessary replication across courses. And actually they can use our modular approach to think, what content do we want to include in our courses? So you can then start to move bits around and put them into your course, and it provides an opportunity for a discussion with module leaders as to what sort of things course leaders want to be incorporated into their courses. I see this very much as a blended learning solution. A number of people are afraid, or concerned rather, that it will cause students to engage less with textbooks and journal articles. I don't believe concerns about whether it will stop people using other materials should prevent this approach being adopted or trialled within an organisation, because it's up to the individuals themselves. Their use of one source of material doesn't prevent them using another, and for the reasons I've proposed in this seminar, I think there is an opportunity for this sort of material to enrich the student experience when they're engaging with textbooks and journal articles, because it provides them with a structure of the sort of key points that they can then use to more effectively learn from the literature, the key themes. So I believe it's very much appropriate for a blended learning solution. You can do a range of additional things with this particular software. So you can import contact information from Microsoft Outlook. You can actually allocate time and resource to projects, and also you can then export to Gantt charts. And so project management is another useful skill that students need to develop in order to implement strategy, and this is a tool that enables them to work on that. You can also include milestones in the material.